with the event itself and then afterwards. I think, like, we had tested that workout in various variations, like in training, because we kind of had a feeling it would come up. So we did, like, the original version, we did, like, a pegboard version, and honestly, at that point, like, I wasn't afraid of the workout anymore. Like, I knew how bad it was going to feel. Like, I knew it was going to be hard. But I wasn't ready for that workout. Like, it was so much harder than anything we'd practiced. Like, the sled just, like, didn't move. It was so hot. Like, I remember literally after my first 2 rope climbs, I was like, I'm already at a red line. Like, I'm toast. But I knew, like, because, like, this rope climbs are a pretty big strength, like, I could just, like, kind of use that as, like, my place to, like, make ground. And, getting to the 3rd round and, like, having a bit of a lead, I was, like, super excited. Like, oh, like, this could be my first, like, event win. And at that point, I was dying. Like, after the rope climbs, I, like, dumped water on myself. Like, I just was, like, trying to finish. And I got to the sled, and it didn't move. I was like, oh no, like, this is gonna be terrible to try to finish. And I could feel my shoe kind of like slipping a little bit once I started to move the sled. I didn't think it was gonna fall off, but I like could feel it like moving. And kind of out of nowhere, I just like face planted into my sled because my shoe like slipped off. Just a response. There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah, perfect. My first initial response was like, oh no, like, you just hurt so bad for nothing. Like, if you don't finish this workout and people pass you, you just expended so much energy trying to win, and it's going to be for nothing. Like, if you get a middle of the pack score because you're just like standing here. So that was my first thought, was like, oh no. And then Emma Tall obviously finished, Laura finished, and then I could hear the announcers saying that Alexis and Emma Lawson were, like, really close. And I just, like, at that point, just put my toes in my shoes, because I took my shoes off originally thinking, like, no shoes is better than one shoe, and I could push it barefoot. But Chuck waited until I took both off. I took both socks off, and I'm, like, starting to push, and he comes over, and he's like, you got to put them back on. And, like, my hands were useless. My shoes were triple knotted. Like, there was just, like, the level of panic was, like, oh, no. So I ended up just putting my toes in, and luckily I was able to cross the line, but that was
got some strong toes.
Yeah, sheesh.
Afterwards, like, Justin, I mean, I would have paid big money to, like, watch the event.
I'm upset. I didn't even see him during that event, but does anybody have video of him on camera?
I saw him during the semifinals, and I know he was so I can only imagine.
I know, that's why this would have been great.
You know why you didn't see him? He wasn't out there. He gets too nervous, so he stays in the warm-up area and watches on the TV because he gets too nervous.
Oh, man.
Oh, man. Whatever, like, non-completely silver gray hairs he has in his beard were probably just decimated by that.
Poor guy.
But I guess it's also like a testament to how well you're doing in that event that you could face plant, have a shoe come off, take the other shoe off, then put the shoes back on, and then still cross the finish line in 3rd.
Yeah, I feel like in the moment it was, like, hard to, like, be excited about it because I felt just, like, disappointed. But I feel like once, like, there was some comic relief, like, some reels started pouring out and people started making jokes, like, it ended up actually being, like, a really funny moment to hold on to.
What was that conversation with you and Justin after that event?
I was, like, in the ice bath, just, like, kind of bumming, and he was kind of like frustrated. But it was, like, positive. I don't think we really talked. I think we both just, like, understood what happened, and we're like, dang.
But it's so funny because, you know, obviously you know what happened, but correct me if I'm wrong, at the time it was your best career finish at the CrossFit Games. So it's like, yeah, there's like this double-sided element to it where, yeah, maybe could have had the win or we're right there, but the consolation prize is that you get 90 points, 92 points, and you moved up into the top 10.
Yeah, it's like funny, right? Because like if you didn't know what happened and you're like, oh, third, like sick. It was more just like in my head, like, that was like, oh, like this is my event to win this weekend. So it was just like, a little bittersweet, but still, it was a good memory now. Like now I'm kind of like, oh, it's fun.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this before, but we're obviously big fans of Justin Kotler. But what makes him such a good fit for you right now?
I think he just cares more than like anyone else I've ever met in the space. Like sometimes to the point I'm like, okay, please don't stress because you're gonna stress me out because he just like, is so excited. But like he just really cares and like I was saying this to someone the other day, but like when you get a let's fucking go from Justin, like nothing else feels quite like it because he also doesn't blow smoke up your butt. Like he'll tell you how it is. He'll tell you like if something's not good or like he won't tell you something was good unless it is. So I just like appreciate like how real he is about stuff. And I'm also just a really big like family, like relationship based person. And so I appreciate like that aspect. And like I love his wife and his kiddos. And like it just feels very like family.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Well, and even when you think about your finish overall, when we spoke to Justin during semifinals and after semifinals and before the game, he had all of these expectations right on the money that you were going to perform exactly how you did and essentially place the way you did. Is it hard for you to almost catch up to his belief system of like some of the like athleticism that you do have? And do you feel like sometimes you have to trust him more than yourself because he knows you that way?
Yeah, I think like that's definitely been something I've like been learning over the like past years. Like he'd say something like, no, like you're on crack. Like, I don't know. But then he'd be right and I'd be like, okay, like, and I kind of just am learning, like, he doesn't say something unless he truly believes it. And I think he's been around long enough to, like, know what he's talking about. So definitely, like, starting to just listen. And if he says so, then I'm like, okay.
One thing that really impressed me about your games weekend is over the years, I've seen athletes get, I don't want to say stuck in a rut, but they get caught in these almost like these packs, right? If you start the weekend with some 15ths, some 18ths, that's just kind of where you fall into. It's almost like that becomes the expectation, and your previous results kind of dictate your future. So I'm always impressed by athletes that can break out of those little pockets and elevate their game and rebound from tough finishes. And I think you did that twice. You were kind of maybe a couple middle of the pack finishes on day one, really strong day two. You had a couple finishes mid-pack again, and then you rebounded again towards the end. How do you get outside of that? Is that something that you've always been able to do? Is it a conscious thing, or is there something that you guys do specifically to help you elevate your game in the face of, some, I guess, not great finishes?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think like day one, I didn't really know what to expect. So like, I think I finished day one in like 11th or somewhere around there. And I was kind of like, okay, like that's close to top 10, which is like, was my goal throughout the weekend. And I think I'm pretty good at doing it event by event. I think semifinals taught me that like really big time, just after having like a really essentially a bombed event with the snatch workout. And like if I wanted to win, I didn't really have a choice but to like let it go and execute. And so I feel like with the CrossFit Games, like every event is its own opportunity. And if you can compartmentalize it like that, then it definitely helps.
You now have a whole lot of data to work with as you move forward, not only for the rest of the year, but now on into the next season. So given what you learned at the games and what maybe you and Justin have talked about, what is the plan now for the rest of this year and then heading into 2024?
Yeah, so we're working with Chris Henshaw right now for like aerobic stuff, and so we just have a big plan of like making a bigger aerobic base. So like those events like the bike and the run where it's like middle of the pack, like ideally those turn into like top 10s. And so just working on a lot of that aerobic fitness. And obviously my snatch hasn't been very consistent in competition, which is a big goal. Unfortunately, I feel like I'm like allergic to snatching. Every time like I'm like hit like a solid training block, something happens. Like right now I'm dealing with like a bone bruise, so I can't snatch, which is really frustrating. But that's obviously the ultimate goal, to like work on that this season once the body allows, and otherwise just kind of like keep chipping away, laying bricks, and just one thing at a time.
What did your post games routine look like? I imagine that coming off like such a high, there's a mix of emotions of maybe wanting to like keep that ball rolling or even like take some time away. I'm curious what it looked like for you.
Yeah, the week